Have you ever noticed how some words fade the moment they're spoken, while others stay? They echo. They return at night. They linger in silence. Why is it that a woman can receive 10 compliments in a day and forget 9 of them, but one sentence, spoken quietly, stays with her? Not because it was loud, not because it tried to impress, but because it touched something unseen. Most men never learn this difference. They think attraction is created by saying more, by saying nicer things, by stacking praise until something sticks. But attention doesn't deepen attraction. Presence does. And presence has a very specific sound. Here's the quiet truth most men don't want to hear. Compliments are not neutral. Every compliment reveals your position. It shows where you're standing and who you believe holds power. Watch closely. When a man says, "You're so beautiful, you're perfect, I can't believe someone like you would talk to me," it sounds positive, but beneath the surface, something else is happening. He's giving without choosing, offering without discernment, placing her above himself. And attraction doesn't grow upward, it grows across or toward strength. A woman doesn't want to be worshipped, she wants to be recognized. There's a difference. Praise says, "I hope you approve of me." Recognition says, "I see you, and I'm grounded enough not to lose myself in what I see." That grounded energy is rare, and rarity is seductive. Stoic philosophy understood this long before modern psychology gave it names. A Stoic man doesn't rush to speak. He observes first. He notices patterns, contradictions, subtle shifts in energy. He doesn't compliment to create a reaction. He speaks when something is true enough to be said. That's why his words land heavier. Think about this. If everyone gives a woman compliments, then compliments have no weight. They become background noise. But when a man who speaks less, a man who doesn't chase validation, offers a single, precise observation, her nervous system listens, because now the question forms in her mind. What did he see that others didn't? This is where most men lose power without realizing it. They speak from hunger, from wanting to be chosen, from wanting to be liked, from wanting reassurance. And a woman can feel that instantly. Not logically, somatically. It comes across in tone, timing, body language. Stoicism isn't about emotional coldness, it's about emotional self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency is magnetic. When your words don't need anything in return, they carry authority. Here's a perspective shift that changes everything. A compliment should never be an offering. It should be a reflection. You are not giving her value. You are noticing what already exists. And you are selective about what you acknowledge. That selectivity creates tension. And tension is the soil where desire grows. Let this sink in. The most attractive men are not trying to create attraction. They're responding to what they observe, calmly, honestly, without urgency. They don't ask themselves, "Will this make her like me?" They ask, "Is this worth saying?" That difference alone changes how every word lands. In Stoic terms, this is dominance through restraint. Power isn't loud. It doesn't rush. It waits. It watches. And when it speaks, it's felt. This is why weak compliments fail. They reveal anxiety. They reveal imbalance. They reveal a man trying to move upward toward a woman instead of standing firmly where he already is. Attraction doesn't respond to effort. It responds to centeredness. And centered men don't decorate women with praise. They recognize energy, presence, depth. In the next part, we'll begin with the first compliment. Not a line, not a trick, a psychological observation that subtly flips the frame and stays with her long after the conversation ends. But before we go there, sit with this question. When you speak to a woman, are your words trying to earn something, or are they simply revealing who you already are? There's a moment most men miss. It happens early, quietly, often before attraction fully forms. It's the moment a woman decides whether a man sees or merely looks. Looking is easy. Seeing is rare, and rare things create gravity. The first compliment is not about beauty, not about style, not about her body. It's about perception. Here it is. There's something controlled about you. Not everyone would notice it. Notice what this does. You're not praising, you're not asking, you're not explaining, you're observing. And observation is power. This line doesn't put her on a pedestal. It doesn't make you smaller. It doesn't chase a reaction. It simply states that you noticed something beneath the surface, something most people miss. Why does this work? Because most women are constantly evaluated, but rarely understood. Men comment on what's obvious, her smile, her looks, her clothes. You comment on restraint, on self-control, on internal discipline. Now you're speaking to her identity, not her appearance. That changes the dynamic immediately. Inside her mind, a shift happens. How did he see that? What else does he notice? Why does his attention feel different? Curiosity activates attraction faster than praise ever could. Stoic men understood this intuitively. Marcus Aurelius wrote less about others and more about perception, because perception determines reality. When you reflect back something subtle, you're telling her, I'm present, I'm watching, I'm not distracted by the surface. That signals emotional authority, and emotional authority feels safe, but also intriguing. Here's the deeper psychological layer. Every woman has two selves, the social self and the private self. Most men interact with the social mask. They complement the version she presents. You speak to the self she guards, the one that manages emotions, holds boundaries, carries weight. That's why this line doesn't excite loudly. It sinks in quietly. Later, when she's alone, when the noise fades, her mind replays it. Controlled. Not everyone would notice. And now you are associated with depth. Not excitement, not entertainment. Depth. Depth is what creates lingering desire. A stoic compliment never demands a response. After you say it, you stop. You don't explain. You don't smile nervously. You don't fill the silence. Silence does the work, because silence after a statement signals certainty, and certainty is attractive. Many men ruin good moments by talking too much. They add disclaimers. They soften the impact. They try to make it land better. Stoic men trust the weight of their words. They let space carry meaning. Here's when to use this. Not during loud flirtation. Not during forced conversation. Use it when there's calm, when her energy slows, when she's comfortable being herself. Say it like a passing observation, almost casually. That contrast between the depth of the line and the calm delivery creates tension. She feels something shift, but can't immediately explain why. And that uncertainty makes you memorable. This compliment does one more important thing. It positions you as the observer, not the performer, not the pursuer. The man who notices chooses. That frame alone flips attraction. Before we move to the second compliment, consider this. Most men try to impress women with intensity. Stoic men affect women through precision. And precision always outlasts excitement.
There's a side of a woman most men never speak to. Not because it isn't there, but because they're intimidated by it. It's the part of her that isn't polite, isn't agreeable, isn't trying to be liked. The part that knows exactly how powerful she is. Most men avoid it. They soften their words. They joke. They retreat. A stoic man does the opposite. He doesn't confront it. He doesn't challenge it. He simply acknowledges it. And that's where the second compliment lives. Not in flirtation, but in recognition of her shadow. Here it is. You're not as harmless as people think. Say it slowly, calmly, without a smile. This line does something dangerous in the best way. It tells her you're not fooled by the surface. Most people interact with the version of her that's socially acceptable. You're speaking to the part that stays hidden, the intuitive side, the seductive side, the part that chooses rather than waits to be chosen. Why does this land so deeply? Because every woman knows the side of herself, and very few men ever acknowledge it without fear. When you say this, something subtle happens inside her nervous system. She feels seen without being exposed. You're not shaming, you're not praising, you're showing comfort in the presence of her power. That's rare, and rarity creates trust. Here's the key most people miss. This compliment doesn't put her above you. It places you beside her. You're saying, I recognize your edge, and I'm still grounded. That communicates strength without domination. Stoicism never aimed to overpower emotion. It aimed to remain steady in its presence. That steadiness is what makes this work. When a woman feels her shadow acknowledged calmly, she relaxes. She doesn't need to perform. She doesn't need to hide. She doesn't need to test you as much, because you've already passed a test most men never even see. Timing matters here. Use this when she's playful, when she's teasing, when she's pushing boundaries lightly. Say it like an observation, not a challenge. Then let silence follow. Silence allows her to decide what it means. And when she assigns meaning herself, the impact multiplies. Now let's move to the third and final compliment. This one is quiet, almost invisible, and it's the one that lingers longest at night, because it doesn't speak to attraction. It speaks to safety, but not the kind that begs, the kind that assumes. Here it is. You relax when you're around me. Not as a question, as a statement. This line reframes the entire dynamic. Most men try to prove they're safe. They explain themselves. They overcommunicate. They seek reassurance. A stoic man doesn't try to convince. He simply notices the effect he's having. This tells her something important without saying it directly. That you're aware of emotional undercurrents. That you're grounded enough to feel them. That you trust your presence. Safety is not created by words. It's created by consistency of energy. And when you calmly name something that's already happening in her body, her relaxation, her comfort, her system agrees. Because it's true. Truth settles deeper than persuasion. This is why the line stays with her. Later, when she's alone, when the day slows, her body remembers how she felt around you. Calm, anchored, unrushed. That's when desire deepens. Not in excitement, but in trust. Stoic philosophy understood this long ago. A leader doesn't ask if others feel secure. His presence answers the question before it's asked. This compliment positions you as that presence, not dominant, not loud, but reliable. And reliability creates surrender. Here's the final realization. These are not compliments. They are reflections. They don't chase attraction, they reveal it. They don't inflate her ego, they ground the interaction. And when a man is grounded, a woman's imagination fills the space. That's why she replays your words, not because they were seductive, but because they were true. Let this settle. Attraction doesn't come from saying the right thing. It comes from being the kind of man whose words carry weight because he doesn't need them to. Silence, presence, precision, those are the real Stoic secrets. And the men who understand this are never forgotten.